Good morning, Joel. I've got my coffee. Let's do some news. We First up, we had a wonderful comment from Struggling to Blinken. He told us that nuclear war just isn't that big a deal. Climate change is just as much a problem, according to him, and we should all be far less worried about nuclear war and far more worried about climate change. I think this is yet another clear example of the fact that America feels absolutely no threat of nuclear war from Russia. They make these mental statements, which I can't imagine are based in anything but a very strong confidence that Putin's not mad enough to be pressing any big red button. This is from update from TASS, which in turn comes from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and in it they talk about the attack over Moscow, although that was cut off. That they also talk about a an attack on a railway between Crimea and Kherson, with 12 Storm Shadow missiles being fired, and all of them shot down by air defense. Again, this comes directly from TASS. So the Ukrainian military did not succeed in any direction where they tried to attack. This is from Putin. Everywhere the enemy has been stopped and thrown back, pointing out that the armed forces of Ukraine, due to losses, withdrew their assault units to places of restoration of combat capacity. They've changed tactics to reduce vehicle losses, where personnel are brought up, thrown out, and the immediate equipment immediately disappears. They go on the attack on foot. This leads to large losses or in manpower. It sounds absolutely horrendous. Drone attacks on Moscow, Crimea, and Taganrog. Moscow Mayor Sergei Soybin said that the Ukrainian drones had attacked the city. They'd attacked two Moscow city office towers, slight damage, but there were no casualties. As people have pointed out, if that attack had come in the day, there would have been people in those offices, but thankfully they were empty at the time. Needless to say, though, this is going to significantly impact the amount of people who want there to be a further escalation in Ukraine, perhaps even move to a war footing. This is definitely not going to be something that Putin can be seen to ignore. And I'd be very concerned if I was Ukrainian. I don't feel that this is the Ukrainian government working for its people at all to launch these sort of terrorist attacks when Russia has air superiority and more missiles. It just makes no sense. This says here that they did manage to destroy three other drones, but that one got through. And then it says here that Ukraine tried to attack Crimean targets with 25 drones. 16 of them were destroyed by air defense systems, and another 9 were suppressed with electronic warfare. Again, this comes straight from TASS. Even more drones crashing on July the 30th. And then it says here, Russia, through official and unofficial channels, received about 30 peace initiatives for settlement in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said in an interview with our agency on the sidelines of the second Russia-Africa summit. According to the Wall Street Journal, Saudi Arabia plans to hold peace talks on Ukraine in early August with the participation of Western countries. High-ranking officials from 30 countries will arrive at the meeting, which will be held from the 5th to the 6th in Jeddah. But Russia is not on the list. Now, I'm not sure what peace talks can happen without Russia. It would make far more sense for Ukraine and Russia to be there, but there we are. It seems to be being used as an opportunity for the West to be putting pressure on global southern countries to join the sanctions party, which I very, very much doubt will happen. And they want to talk, from what I can gather, about Zelensky's peace plan, which is ludicrous. 1991 borders and leaving Crimea as if 2.4 million people can just leave Crimea. It's clearly designed to be rejected, but let's kind of see what they come out with, I guess. Ukraine commandos train in UK for Crimea invasion. This operation will involve strikes from air, land, and sea, with Ukrainian commandos using technology to undermine and paralyze Russian troops. This is very weird to me because it's not like Crimea is a heavily military area. It's mostly civilians that are protected when needed by military. Um, this seems to be more an act of terror from my perspective than one of military, as was the attack on the Kerch Bridge and the drone attacks on Moscow. I don't understand why we're training these people, to be quite honest with you. And again, this is another newspaper, British newspaper. This one's the Sunday Express, talking again about training the Ukraine commandos in UK for Crimea invasion. I imagine that they're using parts of the Salisbury Plain that they used to train British troops to storm Northern Ireland, and we all know how great that was for the civilians. Very disappointed in my country today after seeing this. For 46,000-year-old worm was found in Siberian permafrost. It was brought back to life and started having babies. So worms in Russia can last up to 46,000 years, and as we know, Ukrainian worms only last an average of 4 hours. I gave the wrong information in a previous post. It is ECOWAS, which includes 15 African states, that gave a week for the president to return to power in Niger. Otherwise, they will use all measures, including military ones. ECOWAS actually imposes a complete economic embargo on Niger, and this is essentially the Western friendly countries in Africa that have attempted to impose these sanctions with William Ruto at their head. And as I said in my previous video about this, this might well be the start of a large scale war in Africa. And I think that, as this is ECOWAS and not the African Union, as I was previously told, I believe that it will be of no trouble for Russia and probably China to pick sides here and decide who is working in the best interests of the African people. Some pictures have arrived of Macron, obviously feeling the pinch, what with all the riots going on in France, being hated by his own people, and now losing his mines and his free money pits. Poor Macron. Wait with me while I shed a tear. Very hard man to feel sorry for. But I haven't yet been able to get an article about this, but apparently the Swedish ambassador to Iran has been dismissed, and Iranian leaders will not meet with Sweden until they find and arrest the person responsible for burning the Quran. I'm actually going to do a longer video about Sweden and the whole thing, but that is what I've heard down the grapevine, and I will look out for proof, someone who's written it down before bringing that. Britain have postponed the recognition of PMC Wagner as a terrorist organisation after the mutiny. Okay, I don't understand how, attacking a country, even if it's Russia, it makes you less of a terrorist. I mean, this is bizarre. The UK authorities have shelved the issue of adding Wagner to the list of terrorist organisations after attempted mutiny at the end of June, according to the newspaper The Times, citing sources. Data on budgetary financing of the group forced the government of the kingdom to reconsider the legal consequences of such a step. Wow, Britain. Once again, horribly disappointed. Please check in for part 2 of the